Hello listeners and welcome back to another NPK podcast with myself, Thomas.
And myself, Stephen.
Today's podcast is completely different from any other podcast that we normally do. Today's podcast is a sole dedication to Howard Marks.
In memory of Howard Marks, we've dedicated this podcast to him.
As some of you may or may not know, Howard Marks sadly passed away this week.
Monday.
It was on Monday. So basically, we've decided, I'm a big fan of Howard Marks. I've also had the pleasure of meeting the guy and having a smoke with the guy as well. So we decided that we were going to do a dedication to him and his
memory, what he stood for, what he believed in, all that sort of stuff. And what we've done is he'd done a lot of interviews on YouTube. We'll be crediting those YouTube videos at the end. And what we've done is some people asked him, I've probably spent most of this week going through all the videos and picking up the bits I found really interesting and the bits that Thomas found interesting. And we've put them together in this podcast for you. We're going to ask the questions that had already been asked, and Howard will be clipped in. So this is our dedication to Howard Marks and everything he stood for. And
well, Stephen, I know you've worked hard, and Rick, the editor, has been working hard all week. Thanks, due to my request, for this dedication. And it's a little bit different what we're doing. We're basically, as Stephen said, asking some questions, and we're going to get the original answers from Howard's original voice with a bit of some nifty editing. But basically, it's a bit of Howard's best bits that we have chosen. So I hope you enjoy this week's podcast, because it's something completely different. It's something that we've never done before, and it's solely in memory of Howard Marks. I'm just going to first of all talk to you and tell you who Howard Marks is, very briefly, what he's done.
Cool.
His birth name is Dennis Howard Marks. He was born on the 13th of August 1945, and he sadly passed on the 10th of April 2016. He was a Welsh drug smuggler turned author who achieved notoriety as an international cannabis smuggler through his high-profile court cases. At his peak, he was supposedly smuggling consignments of the drug as large as 30 tons, and was connected with groups as diverse as the CIA, the IRA, and the Mafia. He was eventually convicted by the American Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, and handed a 25-year sentence to be served at Terre Haute. He was released in April 1995 after serving 7 years. Though he had up to 43 different aliases, became known as Mr. Nice after he bought a passport from convicted murderer Donald Neese.
Okay.
After his release from prison, he published the best-selling autobiography, Mr. Nice, and campaigned publicly for changes in drugs legislation.
Okay, so that's a bit of a nutshell on his life.
Yeah, basically. That just hits on some of the main things. But as we're going to go in a little bit further and ask some questions,
we're going to do the best bits. I think that you described that well. This is Howard's best bits. But what I wanted to get across is people's preconceptions of drug smugglers or a drug smuggler. Now, this
stupid divvies who just want to flout the system, pillage and wreck our society and community. That's what a drug smuggler normally falls under.
That's what people think of them as, isn't
an
it?
idiot, basically.
Yeah, but this guy Howard, unfortunately, since he passed, I really looked into his life and what he stood for and what he'd become and what he was, and I don't half have a lot of respect for him, because he was such an intelligent person, and I think that's what we want to get across today is how intelligent he was. He gained a place at the Balliol College in Oxford. Now that's British Oxford University. Cambridge and Oxford are the two leading universities in the country, because he impressed Russell Meigs in an interview. He read physics at Oxford from 1964 to 1967. So not only was he in one of the most prestigious universities in the country, he read bloody physics there, which is a hard subject in itself. He was actually introduced to cannabis by Dennis Irving after his friend Joshua Macmillan died. Mark swore off ever getting involved with any hard drugs and just stayed with cannabis. That's what his passion was. And among his friends at Oxford were epidemiologist Julian Peto and a journalist Lynn Barber. Now, on Wikipedia, it says that through a mixture of cheating and last-minute cramming, he passed his finals. And this was despite months of taking drugs rather than attending classes and a serious infection he developed a few weeks before the exam. In 1967, he began teacher training and married Kadigas, a Latvian student at St Anne's College in Oxford, who was also trained to become a teacher. But he gave up teacher training to continue his education at the University of London between 1967 and 1968, and then back to Balliol, Oxford from 1968 to 69, and got a diploma in philosophy of science. I was trying to figure out what DIP HPHSC stand for. It's a diploma in philosophy of science, and then carried on the philosophy of science
So
study.
highly educated man.
Yeah, he did the entrance exam before he managed to get the interview for Oxford, which is supposed to be the hardest thing that an Oxford student has to do in a life, is that entrance exam. And he just pissed it.
Yeah.
When he was in college, if anyone's seen the film Mr. Nice, the opening 10 minutes shows him getting beaten up because he was a bit of a swot. He got 97% on tests.
Yeah.
He was very, very intelligent. He could have been, if he'd wanted to, in academia. He could have been a lecturer. He would have gone on to get his PhD.
That's what's so good about him. He actually chose what he wanted to be anyway, and he was happy being what he was, and he was very successful at it as well.
He was for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that little different side of him across. He wasn't some divvy who just thought, oh, this is the only thing I can do. He specifically...
He had a love for hash, didn't he?
Yeah. And
a big love for hash. He brought that to the universities, and
it just took off from there.
Snowballed effect.
And I think it's a great time to actually listen to the words of Howard Marks and quit our ramblings and actually let's listen to the man in his finest form. So in this first clip, Howard talks about how his life began as a smuggler. So let's have a listen.
There was a time where I was simply a consumer and not a dealer, but because I was very keen on smoking cannabis, I wanted to try more and more of it. I wanted to smoke more and more of it. I wanted to try different types of cannabis, and became what's known as a dealer, which I suppose, looking back, is nothing more than having more marijuana than I could smoke. But I did become a dealer and financed my own cannabis use as a result of fairly small-time dealing. That over a period of about 5 years, I suppose, something like that, that increased. My dealing activities increased. Until at some point it became obvious that that was my career rather than pursuing the academic course that I was doing. And then, yes, then I was risking by driving, I suppose, something like up to about 100 kilos in my car around London through roadblocks and things like that. Then it became risky. But the longer I'd been taking those risks, the more used to I became to being a risk taker, and therefore it just almost seemed to be normal to taking these risks, and of course getting away with it all the time, and everyone I know getting away with it pretty much all the time gave, I don't know if it was a false sense of security or a real sense of security, but made me confident enough to expect the gamble to pay off.
So you told us a little bit there about how life began as a smuggler, and the next part of that clip that I wanted to introduce was how the risks involved with smuggling and how he negated those risks. Let's go back to what he was saying about the risks involved.
I suppose my awareness of risk generally began properly when I consciously became a fugitive. I consciously became a fugitive because I was looking at 4 years in prison if I didn't become a fugitive, and decided I would prefer to become a fugitive. I don't think there was any risk involved there. It was just a decision I made. But because as a result of making that decision, then I had a threshold where I was taking a risk anyway, and that I was a fugitive and could be arrested just for walking down the road, for existing, really. So the question then was how to make money, whether to risk further time in prison, whether to do work that I knew, which I was fairly professional at, i.e. smuggling marijuana, to survive, or whether I should pretend to be a geography teacher with a false name somewhere. I decided to increase my smuggling activities, and therefore I suppose that's when I realised, yes, no, I'm not just risking 4 years in prison, I'm now possibly risking 12 years in prison. But the difference, even though it was a difference of degree, there wasn't much kind of awareness of difference in kind at all.
So Howard talks about being a fugitive and how he travelled. Interesting. Let's have a little listen to Howard telling us a little bit more about that, what it was like being a fugitive and how he got about and how he got around the globe.
Yeah, okay.
As a fugitive, I had to decide whether to travel or not. And if I decided to travel, I would have to have a travel document, a passport, which enabled me to do it. I didn't have one. That had been surrendered because I skipped bail. So I acquired other passports. One of the first I acquired was an Irish passport in the name of Peter Hughes. And I remember being very, very nervous about using that for the first time for a number of reasons. One, I was travelling between two countries, where neither of which I'd lived in, Ireland and Brussels, actually to Belgium. I was travelling there. And therefore breaking a few more laws, entering into a country with false identity, having acquired, used, applied for a false passport. I remember thinking, this is definitely up in the stakes a bit now. I'm involving jurisdictions of more than one country, etc. And nevertheless flew, thinking it was not so much a matter of necessity, but necessity if I wished to travel. I would have to do this sort of thing. I would have to get used to travelling around with false identities. And I flew from Dublin. Nothing happened there. No one seemed to take any notice. And then landed in Brussels and went to the immigration officer, presented my passport in the name of Peter Hughes to him. And he did the usual, that special look that passport checkers have. They look at you once, twice, 3 times. He looked at me and said, Howard. I could have just fell through the floor. I mean, how on earth did this sort of Belgian immigration officer know my name was Howard? I just gave up. I just thought the odds were definitely against me without my realizing it. But of course he was referring to Howard Hughes, who was in the news at that time. And just seeing the name Hughes made him think of Howard Hughes, so he said the name Howard. It had nothing to do with him, with his being able to work out who I was. So that's when I thought I was taking a much bigger risk than I was. So I continued to use false passports as a result of that experience, with a lot more confidence than before.
This next clip is 14 minutes, and we were captivated by it though, and we think you will be. Howard has been talking about Salim Malik and his connection in Afghanistan and his business. Salim had shown him the hash, and Howard needed to get the 2 million to pay. This happened next.
So I went to get the 2 millions to pay Malik.
I got his hashish. I packaged his hashish. You're nicked.
I found that in the United States, unless one was absolutely innocent as the driven snow, and could prove it without the remotest shadow of doubt, one would get convicted. The only guaranteed way to avoid the resulting heavy prison sentence was to become a grass, a snitch, a snake, a chivato, a turner, a rollover, a stool pigeon, a squealer, a rat, a traitor, a wrong-un, a cunt. a Judas, and lie at the bottom of Dante's hell for all eternity, and never again be able to look your parents or your children in the eyes. I was completely surrounded by proud, self-confessed grasses that had agreed to testify against their business partners and friends in return for lesser prison sentences. Each had his own pathetic justification. He'd been ripped off. It wasn't his fault he'd been busted. He had told all the others to stop. He knew it was all on top. He couldn't stay in prison for years. It wouldn't be fair to his kids. Anyway, everyone would have to become a grass soon. There was no other way. The American war against drugs was fulfilling its most sinister agenda. Loyalties to families and friends have to be replaced. Loyalty to our, God's own country. Forget your personalized, individualized ethics and obey the laws and regulations of our country. God bless America. Enjoy yourself. Watch as much television as possible. Practice using your firearms. Enjoy yourself. But enjoy yourselves our way. For if you don't enjoy yourselves our way, we'll kill you. I had been grassed up by my own good friend, my brother-in-law, the person after whom I'd named my dear son, Patrick. Where was all that loyalty, unity, faith, trust, camaraderie, and romance? Where had it gone? Was it all bullshit? Yeah, of course it was. We weren't the mafia. We weren't the IRA. We weren't even Robin Hood and his fucking merry men. We were just easygoing guys that took the easy way out when the rest of the world seemed to go mad and ruthless. Alcatraz, Sing Sing, San Quentin, they weren't meant for the likes of us, were they? See, we all have our breaking points, okay? Each one of us here tonight has his or her breaking point. Now put a gun to the head of one of my children, and I'll tell you all I know. But threaten me with a prison term, no matter how long, and I will tell you to fuck right off. The United States Penitentiary, with the worst reputation for slaughter and gang rape, was at Terre Haute, Indiana. Known as Terre Haute, it was America's gladiator school and provided an arena for tough, redneck United States government hacks. Leaders of black inner-city gangs such as the Blackstone Rangers, the Bloods, and the Crips. Presidents of rival biker gangs such as the Hells Angels and the Outlaws, and random psychopaths. Half of those imprisoned there would never, ever be released. Being Welsh, I could avoid most conflict by being nice, charming, and eccentric. But never felt stoned or safe. Every prisoner has to work, and I was given the job of teaching English grammar to prisoners studying for the General Education Diploma, GED. On my first day, I faced a classroom of 17 young blacks, most of whom were looking at the rest of their lives behind bars. I was scared, shit scared. But I applied the usual rule. Never ever show your fear. Oh, hello. My name's Howard Marks. I hope to be able to help you study for the English grammar section of the GED exam.
Hey! I ain't trying to learn no motherfucking thing from no motherfucking cracker.
There ain't nothing no fucking white dude can teach me nothing.
Said T-Bone Taylor. Cop killer and second in charge of Chicago's most powerful gang, the Vice Lords. Hey, teach! Oh, look, T-Bone, you don't have to call me Teach. Call me Howard, please.
Teach. I said teach. Teach.
You want to teach? Teach. I call you Teach. Teach.
Yeah, that's okay. You can call me anything you like. I don't mind.
Teach. What gives you the motherfucking right to teach me English? Well, I am English, T-Bone. I was lying, okay? I'm Welsh, for fuck's sake, right? But honestly, he wouldn't have known what he meant. You know, he'd never have heard of Wales or Welsh or anything. So I just pretended I was English, okay? Teach is you saying that just because you's English, that makes you speak better English than us niggas here?
Well, yeah, of course. We invented the language, T-Bone.
We has our own language, Teach. Yeah, I accept that. I accept that, T-Bone, and it's no better or worse than English. But if you want to pass this English examination, I honestly want to help you. What motherfucking use is English going to be to me, Teach? I'm trying to be disrespecting your language or dissing you, but no motherfucking thing. But I ain't trying to be no writer, Teach. I ain't trying to be no writer.
Well, I ain't seeing the streets again, Teach. This motherfucking U.S. government got us homeboys here till we died, Teach.
And you know what, Teach? If it weren't for you motherfucking honkies, we wouldn't be here.
Our ancestors was brung here against their wills in chains.
Yeah, I know. I know. But so was I. So was I.
I was brought over here against my will in chains. And you know who brought me over, T-Bone? You know who brought me over? A black United States Marshal. T-Bone stood up. What the fuck is you saying, T?
Look, you know what I'm saying. Whoever we are and whoever we got you, we all want to get out. Look, I've only just got into this system, but I've already worked out that there's only 3 ways out of here. One, you pay a lawyer a few $1 million, which none of us have, officially.
Try to go for the fence and give some United States lunatic some target practice. Or you write your way out. Look, most of us got more time than we deserve. I know that some of you shouldn't ever have been convicted.
I know the United States government lied and cheated about how much dope you did so they could bang you up forever. I know blacks get hit harder than whites. I know. There's a lot of people out there who want to put a stop to this United States government racial harassment.
A lot more people out there don't know what's happening. Even the judges wouldn't believe what's going on.
Now it's only judges and some other powerful individuals can change things. And I don't mean to be dissing you about anything either. But most of you couldn't even write a letter that these guys could understand.
And they're the only ones that can get you out of this shit. T-Bone, don't tell me you're gonna lie down and take it that easy. 'Cause I ain't.
I meant it when I said I was brought over here in chains against my will. I was brought over here, not my ancestor. The United States Drug Enforcement Administration came to our house in Europe, took me and my old lady, put us in chains, and dragged us over here, leaving our 3 children without a mum or dad. T-Bone, I hear them crying. every night. T-Bone, I hate your fucking government. Your fucking government more than you ever could. Okay, Teach, chill out. Chill out. Chill out, Teach. You ain't a bad dude. Okay, Teach. Teach us some of that motherfucking white rap. Go on, Teach. Sure. Now, why did you guys decide to speak English rather than Spanish, Portuguese, or French? Those guys fucked you around as much as we did. Yeah, Teach, why do we speak English? Give it to us straight. Because you have good taste. Now, okay, you gave us the music. I accept you guys gave us the music. But we gave you the fucking lyrics. Start with punctuation marks. Do you know what they are? That's a period, Teach. And suddenly this huge Rastafarian posse member, massive guy, all right, dreads down to his ass, huge fucking guy, stood up, towered over everyone. Wapen him, Teach. Wapen him. Wapen him, Teach. Him say period. Me say full stop. A Jamaica I come from. In a Jamaica, period mean bitch, bleeding. Head of the Department of Education summoned me to the next room. Marks, you're teaching GED, right? Yeah, that's right. You don't appear to have one. One what? A GED, Marks. I have no record whatsoever of you having a GED or even a high school diploma. Well, I don't have either, that's right. Well, Marks, the powers that be might consider it somewhat inappropriate for a prisoner without a GED to be teaching other prisoners how to get one. See what I'm driving at? Yeah, but I've got a master's degree. Marks, there are plenty of people that have a master's degree who can't teach GED. The haircutting school in this prison gives master's degrees to people who can't read. Yeah, but I got my master's degree at Oxford. Oxford, Wisconsin? Who's your inmate supervisor there, Marks? No, not Oxford, Wisconsin prison. The University of Oxford in England. Well, no disrespect, Marks, but the United States government is a bit wary of foreign qualifications. Thank you.
So those last few clips were taken from his live stage performance. Very charismatic. I hope that came across in the audio clips. These next few clips are from another YouTube channel, which will be given at the end. These asked some really interesting questions, so I've picked out some of the questions that they'd asked and his responses. The first question was, when he smuggled a car full of hash from Germany to the UK, and bear in mind back then that there were borders for every country, how did that make him feel? And eventually landing in the UK's border control after coming over on the ferry. What was it like going through all of those borders? Howard tells us.
Well, it was wonderfully exciting. Okay. And, of course, scary, you know. I mean, the comes about, God, you know, what's going to happen? Anything can happen. I might never go home again. I might be gone for sort of 20 years or anything. And all that fear comes in, and then you almost submit to it. You know, okay, well, I'm going for it, you know.
If it happens, it happens.
Yeah, let's go, you know, just give it all I've got. And then when, you know, you cross that border, I mean, as I've said several times, you know, it's like a sort of religious flash or non-sexual orgasm or something. I mean, it's just a wonderful feeling when you get through it. It's I've never had it from anything else, ever.
So, how big was your empire, and the sort of numbers are we talking?
Well, it's been sort of grossly exaggerated, and I mean, law enforcement tends to have its own idea of what a criminal organisation is. I mean, there was no organisation. There was a bunch of loosely knit people who occasionally came together for a deal and then split off and did another deal with other people and came back together again. There wasn't an organisation. When the DEA say that there was like either 300 or 600 people working for me, and it's, just not true. I mean, I wouldn't have minded if it was true, And, the DA also say it was the biggest dope deal in the world as ever known. For sure I was trying to be, but they nevertheless exaggerated it all. And there wasn't an organisation, or they even called it the Marx Cartel. There wasn't that sort of organisation at all.
So Howard was also asked, have you ever thought about starting up your business empire again? And the answer was...
Well, several times.
Okay.
Several times. I mean, the first time was as soon as I got out. Because I thought, well, tactically, that's the best. That's the last thing they're going to expect. Now, they think I'm going to be still suffering.
Yeah,
that was the
time. Jesus, Howard, you are crazy.
I know, but I didn't. I tried. I started, but of course, so much had changed that I couldn't get any partners or anything like that. It was hopeless. But yes, I think of it. I still think of smuggling ways. Yeah, of course, but. I've always come to the conclusion, before it's too late, that I probably wouldn't get away with it. So I've not done it.
Okay, so those were 3 questions done by another YouTube channel. This next 3 questions that we thought were interesting was a bit of a monologue. He'd done like a 10-minute YouTube video just talking about some of his experiences and how he wanted to campaign against the illegality of cannabis and his thoughts on the situation. So here's the questions.
So Howard talks about who or what could have contributed to illegality of cannabis.
Because see, for 86 million years, it was legal, right? For 86 million years, no country, culture, community or society had any problem with marijuana. It's only in the last 100 years, 86 million years, a long fucking time, right?
Now, you see, like, being this age, I find that I'm getting older. I'm becoming more of a traditionalist, right? A respecter and admirer of ancient traditions. And I wonder, what the fuck could have been so hardcore enough to stop an 86 million year tradition?
Well, it's got to be something fairly hardcore, right? Something significant, okay? So I did my best to try to find out. I entertained every conceivable hypothesis, theory as to why marijuana, cannabis, hashish was made illegal. Thought about every possible explanation.
Now, before I go any further, because I still can't see a thing and I don't want to offend anyone in any sort of way whatsoever. And it really isn't up to me to sit in any sort of judgment on what psychoactive drugs you decide to take, if any.
Right? I don't give a fuck, right? I honestly don't. I only care that you don't get banged up for taking it, right? That's my only care. And I don't want to start telling you which drugs are good drugs and which drugs are bad drugs.
You see, now the alcohol industry, right? I mean, do you think it's possible that they might have made it illegal? What if it was legal or remained legal? It would become the drug of choice for society rather than alcohol.
Because see, again, not wishing to offend, but alcohol is bad for you, right? No, it is, all right? It's addictive, all right? It's got a huge margin of abuse, much more than that of cannabis. But see, every stoner I know likes to get pissed as well. Right? I do. Cheers, See, I drink as well, right?
I mean, all right, I was showing off a bit. Like, no, I can come quicker than that.
But I do drink, and I'm not a lush or an alcoholic or a dipso or anything. I mean,
I get drunk about once a day.
though in Spain I get drunk about twice a day, but I think that's because of the siesta or something. I kind of something to do with that, I think.
Honestly, every day, you know, I notice that, today included, I notice myself walking past a pub or a bar and a feeling coming over me, right? You know, which I can identify, a very familiar feeling.
I want to go into that pub, right, and drink a pint of shite lager, okay? And that's what I want to do. Right? I don't go into the pub because the landlord probably won't let me skin up, right? So I don't go in. Now see, if only that landlord knew, right? If only that landlord knew that skunk makes you far thirstier than a packet of crisps, right?
And I think the alcohol industry are hip to that sort of thing. They know if cannabis was legalized, we would just all go in there, smoke a load of skunk and drink a load of shite lager.
I don't think they're the problem at all. And see, well, I mean, cannabis and alcohol coexist quite happily. In my mind, for sure, you know. And well, I suppose there is that whitey thing, and getting back to that again. You know what I mean? If you drink a hell of a lot and smoke a lot of skunk, it does increase the chance of a whitey. You know? But apart from that little whitey bit, all right? I mean, seems all right to me, the combination, you know. Okay.
And see, again, not wishing to offend, all right? But alcohol, in particular, red wine, was a chosen sacrament, right? The chosen psychoactive sacrament
of two of the world's greatest religions, Judaism and Christianity. Christ, okay, his last meal on earth, Last Supper, took some red wine. Probably didn't drink it down in one, I shouldn't think, you know, but I don't know. But took some red wine, okay, sipped it, and said, do this in remembrance of me. Right? Now, look what the fucking church, right? Look what the fucking church has done with that.
A thimbleful, right? A thimbleful of shite wine, right? Once a week, right? That's fucking disrespect, isn't it?
Obviously, one's meant to drink a lot of red wine, I think, and get pissed and see God. You know? So, I don't think it's the alcohol industry. No, it's not them behind this. I don't think it's them that's maintaining the illegality of cannabis. What about the tobacco industry, though? Have you ever thought about tobacco for a bit, right? Just for a few seconds, right? Tobacco. Bad for you? No. Kills you. Yeah.
Addictive. Doesn't even get you stoned. Now imagine, right? Trying to sell something that is bad for you, kills you, is addictive, and doesn't even get you stoned, right?
I mean, I never had to face those kind of difficulties, right? So I'm thinking, fucking hats off to them, man, you know, they can fucking sell that shit to that extent. Fucking talent there must be in that marketing department. Well fucking done, man, you know. Need people like that to run the country and things, don't they? You know, fucking well done. And see, I put tobacco in my joints. Most of my mates do. Not all of them, but I do. Well, even some of my mates who live in Jamaica, right?
Something about the mixture of tobacco and weed that either gives it a better taste or different high or some sort of preference. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
And see, if they did legalize cannabis, then probably more people would consume it because those who don't want to do anything illegal could then do it. And some of them, I'm sure, will put tobacco in their joints, and so the tobacco industry will sell more tobacco. So I don't think they got any, I don't think they got anything to lose, I was going to say, but I just thought of something then, right? No, I don't know. I don't do it anymore now, but I used to loads and loads of times, and I can't understand why I hadn't thought of it. You know, have you ever done the following? Right, I'm going to give up tobacco and only smoke joints. Right? Yeah. Fucking fatal, isn't it? I mean, have you ever known it work? You know, kind of first day you skunked on your head. I got this one licked. You know. No, I don't think it's the tobacco industry either. No.
More justification, perhaps, it might be the pharmaceutical industry, the chemical industry.
Well, see, let's think about the pharmaceutical industry, the chemical industry. What do? Expend capital, skill, effort, money in laboratories, making, synthesizing, and discovering chemicals that other people want to take. I got no problem with that. None at all. Cheese-linkers would be an example, wouldn't it? You know, I mean, in fact, I don't mind admitting that I have taken chemicals that have come from street laboratories, right, and had the time of my fucking life, right? So I got nothing against what they're doing. But see, the way they make their big money is by patenting what they synthesize. And they can't patent marijuana, cannabis, hashish, because God or nature or some equally heavy entity got there first, right?
But see, it's getting to like conspiracy theory shit, isn't it? And I fucking hate conspiracy theories. I can't entertain them in my head for too long. Probably because I was trained as a postgraduate, as a philosopher of science. Taught that if anything is untestable, it's completely unscientific bullshit. So forgettable. And conspiracy theories can't be testable. And they're usually bollocks. And well, I just wasn't happy with that.
Mind, I've fallen for some conspiracy theories in my time. Not so much thinking about this, and I won't go off. Well, I did fall for one thinking about this, actually, which I don't mind admitting, because I only fell for it for about a week, okay? But, well, for a whole week, actually. For a whole week, right? For a whole week, I thought that the reason why marijuana was illegal was due to the actions of the synthetic fiber industry. No. That it all worked out there, right? You know, like sometime in the 1920s, you know, these guys invent these plastics and synthetic fibers, right? Which obviously no fucker's interested in because they can get the real stuff from plants, you know. So fuck off, you know. Like, so they think, how can we make these people buy these synthetic fibers? Oh, I know. We'll pretend that hemp, marijuana, is like a devil weed or something, you know. Bad for you. Oh, yeah. Then they got to buy the plastic. You know. That's what I was thinking. You thought that, fucking hell, I'm onto something now, you know. Like, and I'd go out to dinner with people and, it must have been such a pain in the arse when I think of it, but it was only a week. And I said,
look, you do realise, don't you, that the first sail on the first sailboat ever was made from hemp, cannabis. The first sail on the first sailboat.
The first rope, cannabis. The first twine, cannabis. The first thread, cannabis. And the first paper from cannabis.
The first book, cannabis. And I would get so off on it that I would say, you understand that without cannabis, there would never, ever have been a single voyage of discovery, or literature, or any civilization worth a fuck.
That bad one. Then suddenly woke up and thought, what the fuck am I trying to convince myself of here? That I can't smoke dope because the synthetic fiber industry doesn't want me to? Fuck them. Mind, in prison, okay, in prison, I did end up knowing why marijuana, cannabis, hashish is illegal.
It was those fucking American Puritans.
Those fuckers, right? Those brutal, barbaric, bullying bastards. Mind, I was banged up in an American prison, right? You know, and could have coloured my attitude a bit, I know, all right? But that's what I sincerely thought at the time, okay? Because, see, American Puritanism, best defined, funnily enough, I think, by an American writer, Emerson.
Emerson defined American Puritanism as that haunting fear that somebody, somewhere, might be happy.
I don't like it, okay? Makes them itchy if you get high.
So after these thoughts, he went on to say why he really believed it to be illegal. Obviously, the last few, he was given what other people's opinions were, and on this clip, he starts to tell us why he really believes it to be illegal.
So when I got let out of prison, I could research the matter more efficiently. I could surf the net and go to university libraries and things like that, and finally found out for sure, without a doubt, precisely when, why, where, how, hashish was made illegal.
It was made illegal in this country, all of Europe and most of the world, in 1928. 1928, that's when that 86 million year tradition took a U-turn.
Where, funnily enough, at the only place I've ever done a whitey, right? Vienna, okay? Should have fucking realized at the time, when I should have got that subliminal message, man, there's something fucked up about this place, but no. Vienna, right?
Now, just to stop it there, the next clip, a phone rings in the middle of his talk and he makes a joke about it, but you don't actually hear the phone ring. So just to prevent any confusion, I've explained it to you here. So bear in mind the phone rings and he makes a quick joke about it. And here's the rest of his clip.
At a conference entitled the League of Nations, that's the old name for the United Nations, yeah? The League of Nations Second Opium Conference. Mobile, answer it, it could be a dealer, mate. I don't want to get in the way of that for a fucking second. Mobiles are allowed to be answered in these sort of things. At a conference held by the League of Nations entitled the League of Nations Second Opium Conference.
Now, as you might infer, the League of Nations Second Opium Conference was convened to discuss what some countries, what some members of the League of Nations thought was a problem of opium use among its immigrant populations.
Basically, to summarize, a bunch of Chinese, okay, had gone over to America to build the railroads, okay, took loads of opium with them, right, did an excellent job of building the railroads, but got well off their tits, right, on the opium. The Yanks couldn't handle it, right, and convened this series of conferences in Vienna, okay. But at the end, right, the end of the Second Opium Conference, they made both the trade and consumption of opium illegal.
Be that as it may, but during the deliberations of the League of Nations Second Opium Conference, the delegate from Egypt, one Mohammed El-Gwindi, jumped up and said, look, if you are going to make opium illegal, then you must make hashish illegal too.
Now, you can probably imagine, yeah, what sort of guys were delegates for the League of Nations in the 1920s, okay? Not your regular bunch of caners, right, for sure. I mean, like, really straight guys, again, scratching their heads, right? Hashish? Hashish? hashish. None of them had a fucking clue, right, what this Egyptian was talking about, right?
But they were responsible delegates in their own way. So they called upon Mohammed el-Gwindi, the delegate from Egypt, and said, please stand up. Please stand up and tell us, explain to us, explain to the world effectively. Please explain to the world precisely what hashish is and why it should be made illegal.
I would very much like to read out what he said, all right, for two reasons. One, the more important one, it's fucking hilarious, right? I mean, it really is very entertaining.
Secondly, more seriously, but not more importantly, you see, I've tried to debate this legalization issue as often as I can.
I've challenged everyone from Tony Blair, Jack Straw. Do you go upwards or downwards from that pair of pricks? I can never work it out, but fucking Jack Straw, man. No, see, I particularly, sorry, tangent now, right? But like, I particularly dislike Jack Straw for the following reasons. Not just because I lost as an MP. I know that. I didn't take that badly or anything. I was pleased to see Labour come in. I mean, I come from a part of the world where, you know, if there was a pig on acid standing against a Tory guy, there'd be no doubt who to vote for. You'd vote for the pig on acid every time. You wouldn't have to fucking think about it, right? So, like, I was quite glad to see Labour getting in and thinking, with some reason, thinking that they might do something sensible about drug legalisation, okay? Just thinking they might. And fucking Jack Straw, then, coming with all that bollocks, all right? And then I noticed his name spelled backwards is Warts. I changed my name for far less reason than that. Of course, he's not Home Secretary now, is he? I don't know why the fuck I'm talking about him. No. He's Foreign Secretary now, isn't he? He is, isn't he? No, he is, I know, because, like, oh, no, I'm going off on a tangent now, but honestly, this is so fucking funny, I'm going to do it, all right? Like, it's right now, Jack Straw now, right, is Foreign Secretary, isn't he? Representing us to the rest of the world in these very troubled times, yeah? I got the right guy now, have I? I'm not off on a spit right. Now, I heard, right, him say this on the radio a few months ago, but I didn't want to talk about it because I couldn't believe he'd said it, and I wanted to check that he actually had said it. So now I can repeat what he says because I couldn't dare do it without checking it, right? Obviously. And this is actually what Jack Straw said, right? Osama bin Laden. It's great to have the way silence always follows that name, isn't it? Osama bin Laden
is clearly very psychotic and extremely paranoid. Now, see, to me, paranoid means thinking a lot of people are trying to get you when they are not.
So, like, if there's anyone in the world, and he might be the only person in the world, right, who could not possibly be diagnosed as paranoid, right, by anyone ever, right, it's bin Laden, right? And see, even the first bit, like, even that first bit of what he said, clearly very psychotic. Now, if you're psychotic, it means you're mad, right? Not bad. Like, my lungs are, you know, fucked up. If you're psychotic, your brain's fucked up in some sort of way, right? You can go and get it treated. It's not your fault, you know. Something wrong with you, you can go and get it treated.
So if bin Laden was arrested here tonight, I mean, he would get nutted off right away, okay? There's no way he's going to the Nick, okay? He's going to get nutted off. It's not his fault. He's only going to go to hospital to be made better. Anyone starts arguing with him, he's going to say, no, ask Jack Straw.
I mean, what a twat. Anyway, sorry, but I have challenged them all, right, to debate against me. I've said, choose any forum you want. Choose any audience you want. Have as much media publicity, coverage as you want. Please give me as much strong dope as you want before the debate.
Please allow me to chain smoke strong joints during the debate. I don't insist on it, but if possible, I prefer it. And I guarantee, okay, guarantee with everything that I hold dear, that I would destroy any argument they would present for maintaining the illegality of cannabis within seconds.
So could any fucker. So could anyone. I don't have any skill in debating, all right? Anyone could destroy any of those fuckers within seconds. So that's why they don't even hold a debate.
So there's some clips of Howard and the excerpts of his YouTube interviews and his speeches and his on-stage performances that we found really interesting. He talks about his book, Mr. Nice, and if there's people listening out there that really are big book readers, there's also the film, Mr. Nice. I really, really recommend that you go and watch it. And as I said about his intelligence, the other thing that we want to get across in this podcast is, as well as how highly intelligent Howard was, is he really lived up to his name, Mr. Nice. And I think this comes across, and Thomas wanted to mention some of the people that he was associated with. Bear in mind that being associated with all these people and keeping them all happy and living a long and happy life, well, he must have been some kind of guy. Who was he involved with, Thomas?
Well, he spent 7 years imprisoned in the Federal Correctional Complex at Terre Haute, not a nice place, in Indiana. A rough prison. He had originally been sentenced to Butner, but Agent Lovato insisted that he instead serve time at Terre Haute. Yeah. So this was a copper who
added in for him.
Yeah, who added in for him, to say the least. One of the 6 most secure prisons in the country, Terre Haute had the worst reputation of the 6 for gang rape and violence. So here we've got Howard Marks in Terre Haute, who's a well-spoken British person.
Well-educated. And a nice person.
Yeah, and he's in one of the toughest prisons in America. But not only that, the number 1 for gang rape and violence. Despite this, Howard remained on good terms with many violent inmates housed there, and he was British and a famous non-rat. So that means Howard, he never ratted on nobody, he never knocked on nobody, he was loyal to his own self-belief and to the people around him. And that's something that I major admire in Howard Marks, and I've got major respect for, because he never ratted on nobody.
Yeah, he said in one of his clips, didn't he, that we were looked at this week, he said, I'm going to tell you honestly, brilliant Welsh accent.
Yeah, not as good as yours, Steve.
No, obviously not. He said, I'm going to tell you honestly, if the DEA had put a gun to one of my children's heads, I would have told them everything. But threaten me with 10, 20, 30 years imprisonment, I'd tell them to fuck off. And that's his attitude.
Yeah, that was his attitude. And with being British and a famous non-rat, he had avoided conflict by being nice, charming and eccentric. During his time there, he befriended many, many notorious criminals, top of the chain criminals that are legends in the criminal history.
Yeah.
Such as, where have we got? We've got members of the 4 reputed 5 families, the Gennaro, Jerry Langella, the Colombo crime family, Jimmy Coonan, Johnny Carneggs from the Carneglia, Vittori, Little Vic, Musso and Frankie Loch, and also Locasio from the Gambino crime family, Anthony Bruno in... Some of these names are just crazy. No offence if you guys are actually listening to me, yeah. And Joey Testa. Also the Lucchesi crime family. He was also made friends with Verona Bowers Jr. from the Black Panther Party, and Big Jim out of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club. So basically, in a nutshell, he was friends with the hardest, well-respected, notorious crime bosses of all time, probably. Yeah, I think that could be short of an understatement.
Yeah. So they were some of the people that he befriended while he was in jail. I think even more impressive is the amount of people from around the globe that he was friends with before he was in jail, and some of the connections he had. And I think, Thomas, you know the names of a couple.
Yeah, well, firstly, between 1975 and 1978, 24 loads totaling £55,000 of marijuana and hashish had been successfully imported through the JFK airport. They had involved the mafia, the Yakuza, the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, the Thai Army, the Palestine Liberation Organisation, the Pakistani Armed Forces, the Nepalese monks, and other individuals from all walks of life. So basically every fucker was involved. The total profit made by all concerned was 48 million. They had a good run, like.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah.
And through all this, he maintained his niceness.
Yeah.
He really lived up to the
Mr.
pseudonym,
Nice.
to the name of Mr. Nice,
Yeah.
So there's our tribute to Mr. Howard Marks, a very intelligent man. He's got my heart because of what he'd done in academia, and he's got our hearts for the way he lived his life. No regrets.
You know what the ironic thing is about all of this? I've always been a fan of Howard for a long time. I've watched his film and I've known the stories about him and his adventures through his lifetime, and I always admired him. And I had the pleasure of meeting Howard Marks with one of my pals. I met him at Spanibus in 2012, I think it was. And the funny thing about him was, I went and sat down in the smoking area, and me, my pal, and Howard all sat down. And the one thing I can remember about him, more striking than anything, is how nice he was.
Yeah.
And that was Howard Marks. That was Mr. Nice.
Yeah.
And we had an interesting conversation. We sat and chat for about half an hour, and we had a little smoke, and it was nice to spend that time with him. And that's mainly why I wanted to do the dedication to Howard Marks. So yeah, dedication to Howard and his family as well. I send my condolences to all his family. He was doing a lot for cancer research and development with CBD crew, with Shanti Baba and all the rest of his team. I know for a fact they'll be living on helping research into CBD, cancer research, and all of those sorts of things. So full support with you guys, and thank you for everybody who listened to today's memorial to Howard.
So to finish, we've found Dylan Thomas's poem, Don't Go Gently Into the Night, read out by Howard Marks, and I think it's a beautiful way to end this podcast in memory to him. So have a listen and listen to the words that Howard Marks speaks. It's really great. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right. Because their words have forked no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in the green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Grave men near death, who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on that sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. I pray, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. The wise men at their end know dark is right. Because their words had fought no lightning, they do not go gentle into that good night. Good men, the last wave by, crying how bright their frail deeds might have danced in the green bay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Wild men who caught and sang the sun in flight, and learned too late, they grieved it on its way. Do not go gentle into that good night. Brave men near death, who see with blinding sight. Blind eyes could blaze like meteors and be gay. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. And you, my father, there on that sad height, curse, bless me now with your fierce tears. I pray, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.